Hi, we're here with Marie Chatterley. My name is Vincent Dolce. How are you today, Marie?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining me. I wanted to go through your business. You guys have been in business for literally a lifetime, right? Your dad
Yeah,
started.
he started it in 1988 is when he started brokering practices here in Denver, Colorado.
Very good. And you're carrying the torch now.
Yes, yeah, I bought in with him as a partner and then bought him out when he retired about 5 years ago now.
Super. And you guys have a wonderful reputation. Um, I wanted to know what's changing in the dental environment. The dentists and what are they looking for in practices, things like that.
I mean, quite a bit is changing in the marketplace as it relates to what buyers are looking for. I would say that our buyers coming out of school now have higher expectations for what a facility and practice should look like. So the dental
Okay.
schools are really nice and have amazing technology. So buyers are hoping to see that in practices that they're looking to acquire, which isn't always the case. I would say our average practice that is for sale does not typically have the beautiful, pristine equipment that the dental school might have. Some of our offices have amazing technology. Like we will have providers that have been practicing for 30 plus years and they are amazing about keeping up with technology in their practice. I think one thing that's changed with what buyers are looking for, at least in the last 10 years, is the size of a practice. So, not necessarily volume, but it
Okay.
used to be that it wasn't that big of a deal to acquire a practice that had 3 to 4 ops. And now I would say my average bar is always asking if there's 5 or more operatories. So they're thinking in mind of having an associate come on board with them in the future, something like that. Whereas it used to be that I would say most doctors acquiring practices, 20 years ago or so were thinking they would just have one practice and just one provider in that practice.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. I mean, that's what I would advise anybody today. Um, 5 or 6 operatories would be a preference. I think that's what they're asking for. Is that correct?
Yeah, as well as an opportunity to buy real estate. So that's one of the most common things that I get asked is what opportunities have 5 or more ops and have an opportunity to purchase the condo or building.
Yeah, I mean that would be ideal. That's not always the case, though, as we know.
It it's not always the case, no. So
Is
yeah.
is it coming out of school and being only maybe a couple of years out of school? Are they able to get the money to purchase not only the practice but a building as well?
No, not typically. I mean, right out of school, no, unless they have family money. Our average buyer is typically not out of school. Most of our buyers are anywhere between 3 and 10 years out of school.
Ah, okay.
And once you're at least 3 years out of school, I would say then you're in a position where you're more likely to be able to get approved for both a practice and real estate at the same time. Oftentimes, I mean, we have phenomenal lenders now that are able to cash flow the practice and even take some of the, you could say, equity of the business and apply that to the real estate. So they're not having to come up with a full 20%, for example, down on the real estate and can do both at the same time.
Okay. And are more people buying a practice, an existing practice, or are they actually opening up from scratch? Are they still doing that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, in Colorado, we have a pretty large number of individuals that do startups every year, although
Okay.
we have a really high growth rate here. So I don't know that we have the number of practice opportunities that are needed for all of the dentists who are moving here that want to practice. But in addition to that, we have such a high increase in population each year that I would argue we also have the capacity for it. We need all these startups here because we have such gigantic sections of the city that are growing so quickly. And startups are becoming a little bit more expensive. I would say just in the last 3 years within our marketplace, they've I mean, what was once $100 is now $300. So there's just a huge change in the cost associated with construction. And that's probably the only thing I would have to say might be a little bit of a hindrance for a startup right now is just the overall cost of construction. But they still are I mean, our startups here are very successful.
Yeah, everybody wants to be in Colorado, and the real estate is growing like, as we all know, like crazy. And
Mhm.
so there is a need for more dentists across the state.
Yeah, both general dentists and specialists. I would say we're pretty underserved with most of our specialty
Okay.
as well.
Wow. Okay. So it's really hard to. So the specialists must be super busy if there's not enough of them.
Yeah, they certainly are. And those that are looking for associates really struggle at finding associates as well. So we don't, I mean, we definitely have a lot of specialists that are super busy that need extra help. And I know struggle sometimes in finding, an associate periodontist, oral surgeon, pedodontist.
I wonder why that is. They're not coming to Colorado, or there's just not enough of them graduating.
I don't know if I know the answer to that. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not certain. I think we do probably have enough graduating, but like I said, it's hard when you have a city that has such substantial growth to be able to keep up with the demand of what the specialists may need to provide in any demographic.
If somebody starts off from scratch, what is the timeline where they start actually making some money? If somebody does open up day one with no patients, like I did years ago, uh, what can they expect as far as being able to support the practice down the road?
These statistics are from the couple of lenders that do the startup consulting, but they're telling me that the average practice typically breaks even between 6 to 12 months. So that's creating enough revenue to pay all of the expenses of the practice. And then the doctor starts taking home money. Now, when the doctor can actually take home enough money to duplicate what they were making as an associate doctor, that's a different item. Like it's often that a doctor doing a startup may work as an associate a few days a week somewhere until they're able to duplicate that income, and that can vary. So some can do it very easily in the first year, some can take a few years. I mean, most banks, I think, see that the first 5 years of any startup are considered growing years, where it takes that long to build the capacity of the practice.
Yeah, no question about it. The advantages that they have today, the advertisement is totally different than when I came along years ago. Uh,
Yes, yeah, they
oh
can
my
be.
goodness.
They can actually advertise. Yeah,
Yeah, in Florida in 1985, we weren't allowed to advertise.
yeah. Most of my older practitioners didn't advertise at all. So
Wow.
depending on when somebody started their business or graduated from dental school, I mean, I think most of my doctors now retiring have advertised within their career, but um, 15 years ago, it was pretty common for me to hear that a seller didn't advertise much or at
Okay.
all.
Wow. They're really lucky. I had to. I was in South Florida. We had to advertise because there was a bunch of competition, and if you didn't advertise, you were not as prevalent, with the other doctors. But today with social media and stuff, I mean, they have such advantages that we never had.
Yeah, definitely. I feel that most doctors have some form of presence online, which is key to individuals finding them.
Yeah, you have to today. Um, I don't know how you could survive in a dental practice without being out there, being online, and yeah, I advocate making videos also there. That's very wide open. Nobody's really doing that in dentistry. I in real When I was in real estate, they did that all the time, but dentistry hasn't caught up yet. We're still we're still catching up with that. So, are are doctors forming partnerships early on, or they open up on their own?
I would say most startup practices, I'm seeing that there are more solo practitioners, but we definitely have a large number of doctors that eventually merge or do some type of associate buy-in buyouts. All of
Okay.
those are fairly common.
Have you ever had, if a doctor goes to a practice and the practice only has a handful of ops, but they do have cash flow, have the doctors ever purchased the practice and then moved it to a larger facility? You know what I'm saying? Because down the line, they're going to have to do that if they want to expand.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are buyers for sure that buy smaller practices with the intent to acquire and merge other practices. But I would also say that it's common to have doctors that, you know, are partway through their career and are acquiring and merging as well.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's cool. That's I think that's a good strategy, especially if the doc you're buying is his or her practice is only 3 or 4 operatories. Are
Yeah.
anybody are any is anybody actually making what I call like the super Walmart of dentistry? You know, where they have a couple of doctors, a couple of specialists, and hygienists. Are they doing that? I mean, I see some corporate practices like that, but are private guys and gals doing that?
Some, I don't think that that's as common. So we definitely have some practitioners that are, you would say non-DSOs, but just have their own facility and have a couple of doctors that are working with them as well as specialists that come in. So I don't think that that is a common trend or something that is a large volume of our practitioners doing that, but we definitely have some that have.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that would be because that's what all the corporate, offices do. They build a big practice so that you don't have to send people out. The biggest complaint that I hear from patients wherever I go is that they have to go someplace else to get a root canal done or an implant.
Um, Yeah, we definitely have some specialists that have relationships with general practices where they go into those practices to complete all of that dentistry as
Yeah.
opposed to having just their standalone practice. Um, like I said, I don't know that that is super common, but for sure, we do have that business model with some.
Yeah, I had a couple of periodontists that went around to practice. They didn't have their own practice.
Yeah.
They actually went around to practice and they enjoyed their lifestyle much better than actually owning a practice and dealing with the day-to-day fun that we deal with, including
Yeah.
dealing with staff and machines and rent.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had 3 periodontists that came to my office. One had his own office and he was moonlighting, and the other 2 had no office. They would travel from office to office and they would go on vacation when they wanted. They had no overhead.
Uh,
To me, if I could get to the specialist, I would convince them to do that.
yeah,
well,
most
well,
certainly.
you're gonna have a better life. You're gonna have a much
Yeah.
better life than sitting in your office. And one of my specialists said to me, he says the reason I did it is because if you have a bunch of general dentists that you're expecting them to refer to you, you have to keep top of mind to them. And like one of my orthodontists, he was always taking dentists out to dinner and buying them tickets for a play and this and that. And the guys who went from office to office never had to do that because
Mm.
the doc when they needed an implant, they'd call them in and get it done. And so they had my one periodontist said, he says, yeah, he says, one of my mentors said, don't do that because you're gonna be spending your life entertaining general dentists.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. I would say that a lot of my specialists, relay that entertaining the dentist is feeling like um, dating. We're going on tons of dates and
Yeah, that's the
just
point. You have to. I mean,
yeah,
I I worked with an orthodontist in South Florida.
Hmm.
The guy saw hundreds of patients every single day. He had the biggest orthodontic practice in the United States, and he was never home. He was always entertaining somebody or taking
Yeah,
them to a ball game.
yeah.
So, Marie, what would you advise a young dentist today? They just graduated. What would you tell him or her?
Well, I feel like there are so many phenomenal opportunities for young providers, both for employment, if that's the route they want to go for either their whole career or a period of time, as well as ownership opportunities, whether it be acquiring a practice or doing a startup. So I think the main thing is to decide on what location is most ideal.
Right.
And then from there, then start vetting opportunities within the location that you're ideally hoping to practice in.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah. They have many more opportunities than I had. That's for sure. I'm happy. It's a different world today. I think more people go to the
Yeah.
dentist today than used to. No, I think there are more people visiting the dentist than in my time. Now I sound old.
I'm not sure per se. I do feel like we definitely have, depending on the demographic that a practice is in, if you're in a middle to high income area, you tend to have a higher dental IQ, and therefore individuals that come more regularly to the dental practice. Depending on what city you're in throughout the United States, I mean, coverage for low income is very different depending on where you are. So I would say probably some markets maybe service that demographic better than others. We tend to have really good Medicaid here in Colorado. The reimbursements are pretty high here.
Yep.
And I know this year is the first year that they eliminated maximum allowance for adults Medicaid for dental. So now even adults can have, substantial treatment if needed.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow, that's great. Yeah, I mean,
Well,
I
it
mean,
is because I mean, historically, if like you had an adult that needed a denture, for example, if you had $1,000 max for Medicaid coverage, that doesn't cover a denture. So being able to eliminate that in Colorado has definitely created an opportunity where you have, pretty substantial population that's elderly that they need decent care that has cost associated with it, and now that they can be served here in our state, but every state's very different. So I acknowledge that it's not always the same.
okay. I didn't know that. That's great. Yeah, I worked in a Medicaid clinic, and their reimbursement wasn't great in South Florida. They covered children, but they really didn't cover adults that
Yeah,
well.
every state's a little bit different. I've noticed for whatever reason, we've had fairly higher reimbursement rates here in Colorado for Medicaid. So especially if you're a specialist, I think they've done that to encourage some specialists to see even a small percentage of Medicaid patients.
Okay. No, that's great. A question that I have, I know that more and more dentists are graduating and they're left-handed as opposed to right-handed. Has that been a problem? Because I had a chair that you could flip either way, but I don't
I
know if
think that's
that.
always a problem. If somebody's left-handed, when they reach out to me to acquire practice, they usually let me know that at the onset because I mean, it's not as common for us to have opportunities that are so easily moved between
Okay.
a provider that's left-handed versus right-handed. I think that still is, yeah.
Yeah, because I was told, I think like around 30% of dentists are left-handed that are graduating today,
Oh, I
which,
actually didn't know that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So they're either going to have to open up their own practice or they're going to have to deal with it. Yeah, I mean,
Or have to make some changes so that it would be, yeah.
yeah, it's a pain in the neck because you'd have to set up a couple of chairs for the one guy because my chair would flip, but it would take a half hour to make it a left-handed chair, by the time you got done. No, that's
Yeah.
great. And so are you busier now than you were, let's say 5, 10 years ago, in
Oh
your
yeah,
business?
definitely. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, um, like I said, just because the marketplace has continued to grow, which has been awesome for startup opportunities, it also has been busy for everyone else in the dental industry. So not just myself, but attorneys, CPAs, real estate brokers, lenders. There's always more and more business that seems to be happening within the marketplace. So we also have gotten busier over the years along with everyone else.
Oh, that's great. I know well, you guys have a great reputation. That's what helps you. So dentists reach out to you. How do they find you?
I mean, a combination of different ways. I think if somebody's searching for a practice in a certain market, so if somebody's searching for a practice for sale in Colorado, they tend to find our website and our listings. So
Okay.
we try to, yeah, as well as here in Colorado, the Colorado Dental Association seems to do a good job about keeping active with the listing. So if somebody's searching, they can search there as well.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, so they're very lucky they have somebody that has all the experience that you have to help them and guide them. And once they buy a practice, do they reach out for help? I mean, I didn't have anybody to help me. I wish I did. That would be something that I think is necessary, especially when you first open a dental practice.
I'm finding that our buyers are a little bit more savvy about having a great team around them. Oftentimes, when somebody's looking to acquire practice, they already have individuals that are, attorneys, CPAs, consultants that are assisting them in the process. We occasionally have the buyer that reaches out looking for a local consultant to assist with whatever they might be in need of within, now running a business for the first time. But I do think it's a blessing that I feel like our buyers are much more in tune with being able to ask for help and looking for help when they need it.
Well, there is more help available, much more
Yes, yeah.
than when I was a kid, which is great. Now they're very lucky. One thing I noticed that not all the dentists are embracing the technology. I've been in offices where dentists are still taking impressions, and they're not using a scanner. And I don't know why that is. According to stats, around 25% of dentists actually have the technology that I had like 15, 20 years ago. They're not doing that. And I wonder, it's baffling to me. I don't understand. They all have an iPhone, and the car that dentists want to drive is a Tesla because it's technologically advanced, but they're not all embracing technology. Do you see that? Or
I mean, I'm not a dentist, so I don't know the reasons behind everything. I would say that we do have a pretty large percentage of retiring doctors that have been excited about technology through their career and adopting new technology. But we also have, another handful that enjoy the way they've practiced historically and haven't felt a need to implement a lot of additional changes with their technology. Younger buyers, however, seem to be more accustomed to wanting the same type of technology that they were used to working on in their dental school. So that has become a little bit more consistent.
yeah, I think that's the key. But not all dental schools are teaching the new technology. They're not. They're still
Yeah.
It's still, I mean, I've seen super specialists still taking impressions, not using the scanner or not. Anyway, that's something that I don't understand why it's taking longer for them to embrace all that technology. Besides the price.
Well, price can be a pretty big factor depending on the circumstance of a younger buyer and acquiring a practice. Sometimes they don't have the capacity financially for
Right.
certain pieces of technology, depending on the price.
Right. Well, I thank you so much for coming on board today and sharing your wisdom with us on buying
Yeah,
a dental
certainly happy
practice.
to.
And so, how would you leave off with the average dentist today looking to buy a practice? What should they do first?
Well, the first step is to determine on the location and to connect with those experts within that location so they build a good team around themselves. Definitely reach out to the brokers that are there that have different practices listed. If they want to be in a specific area, I think being patient with timing is key to finding a right opportunity, and then educating themselves on the process. So looking at various practices, reading appraisal reports, getting a feel for what's on the market, knowing what you like, what you don't like, and then, getting advice from experts in the field to have an idea of pros and cons about different opportunities. And I definitely like to say, if you're looking for a practice to buy, to be open-minded, because maybe you're originally thinking, hey, I need 6 stops, I need it to make over $1 million. Maybe you have this checklist of all of these things that you want, but I would say, please be open-minded to other practice opportunities that can very easily become that practice for you, even if they're not today. And as a plus, you're probably going to acquire them at quite a bit less of a price. So yeah, that's probably what I would say is my last bit of advice is make sure to hire experts. Please always hire an attorney to review stuff on your behalf, and be open-minded to opportunities you wouldn't otherwise consider.
Yeah, it's not always the fancy practice that's the best for you. Unfortunately, we all want pretty and new and shiny, but the reality is, from what I've been told, is cash flow. I mean, if the practice is cash flowing, you could always rehab it like they do with homes. You could always rehab the practice.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
Marie, last question. How long does it take for me? Let's say I found a practice and we started negotiating. What's the average length of time before I could actually move into the practice?
So from the time that that a buyer and seller sign off on a letter of intent, it typically takes about 6 to 8 weeks on the minimum. Okay. Lending needs a little bit more time right now. So I prefer that you give yourself a realistic amount of time to close and feel like you were able to address everything in the process, as opposed to doing it super rushed and leaving things hanging.
Okay. And one more last question. Sorry. Do the dentists that are selling the practice, do they always stay on, or is that warranted?
No, it's not as common for a seller to stay on. It's more common to just have a transition where seller exits and buyer starts. Now, that doesn't mean that a seller isn't open to a transition window, such as helping with a variety of capacities in the practice. It's just really rare that we have an opportunity where there's capacity for 2 doctors to be working at the same time. It's more common that this buyer jumps in and all of the production really needs to be done by the buyer so they can meet their debt service obligations.
Gotcha. So people aren't hanging on for 6 months or a year trying to transition.
No, that's not as common. Yeah.
That was my time. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Marie, listen, thank you so much. We appreciate your time, and thanks for all the help you give to our colleagues.
Yes, you're welcome. No problem.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
Cool.